Hello and welcome to PrideCast, the exclusive podcast for the first ever Poole Pride at Lighthouse on Saturday, the 8th of June. I'm Nick Churchill, and with me are Ashton Corbin, the programming executive at Lighthouse, who's had a hand in planning much of the day's activities, and Jay Taylor-Jones, a non-binary filmmaker and student at Arts University Bournemouth, who has advised on Poole Pride's celebration of queer cinema. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
If you're not already familiar with it, Lighthouse Poole is one of the UK's biggest arts centres outside London. It's an Arts Council national portfolio organisation and a registered charity. We're just across the road from Lighthouse in the Dolphin Centre, using the Foundry Studios as part of our Poole Pride community partnerships. Ashton, to get us started, perhaps you could tell us about Poole Pride, what it is and how Lighthouse got involved.
Poole Pride is something that we've been thinking about for a while. Ever since I've joined, it's always been in the pipeline. My boss, Tim Colgate, has always talked about wanting to have a big celebration here. It's something that I think we felt quite passionately about, not only in our programme about celebrating queer artists and Pride in general, but it is something I think across the building as well. It's part of who we are. A lot of us identify as part of the community. There is that presence in Poole. It just hasn't necessarily had a chance to be highlighted. And where we are a combined arts venue, we're in the perfect place to do it. We have the opportunity to give the space over to certain artists and put on music, drama, art across all of our spaces and showcase this.
So it's a one-day event, but how does the day play out? How does the day work?
So the day itself has lots of different elements to it. We start off the day in the gallery space with Pop and Ollie, who are doing a young children's book reading. We then go into the family portion of the day, which is hosted by Chris Jarvis. There'll be lots of things going on there, talent showcases. We have a dog show, which we're very excited about. It's going to be such fun outside there. And we also have parts that will be in our studio space as well. So cabaret elements, some stuff that will be for families. And then as we go later into the afternoon, stuff that will be for adults. So kind of like the mix of wanting different parts of the community to be involved, but still having something that is a bit more adult as well, which I think is a big part of Pride, that kind of burlesque style of Pride. And we also have our gallery space, which will be showcasing the John Chesterman exhibition as well. So
yes, I was going to say, on top of the day's events on the 8th of June, there is an exhibition and the film festival, which we'll talk about in a moment, that are leading up to Pride.
Yeah, so you can see that exhibition on the day, but also it will be there before the event as well, in our gallery space.
Why do you think it's taken Poole so long to have its own Pride event?
It's a difficult question to answer because we don't. There's never been a lack of a presence here, but queer people have always been part of Poole, and it's something that we've actually noticed after we've started developing this project. We looked into an artist that looks at the history of like queer history in certain towns and counties. I think it's called Queer as Dorset. Yeah. And after seeing that, you find that there's actually quite a lot of queer history in the county, whether it's people that have been that are born here, events that have happened here, or people that just passed through. It has a lot of history here. So it's always been part of Poole. It's always been part of Dorset. And I think there's always been this element as well, because we have Born Free, which is in Bournemouth, and they have been fantastic with us as well. I think there was at the start people thinking that is this going to be a bit of a competition at all, and we talked with them directly. We've sat down with them. They're good friends of ours, and they just want to help. The more Pride events, the better. So I think there's always been the element of people thinking, actually, we've already got one in Bournemouth. Why does Poole need one? But Poole and Bournemouth are such different places. lots of different people living in Bournemouth. Bournemouth feels almost like a city style. You've got that outside element when they do their Pride. And we wanted to bring something to Poole. So it's just been something that we've had to talk about over the years, and now we're at the point where we can bring it here, that we've taken our time with it. It's not something that we've wanted to rush. So these things don't just happen overnight. They do take sometimes years to actually plan and get going. But there's no better time than the present. So,
absolutely. It's always good to see anything that makes Bournemouth and Poole work together as a good
yeah,
thing.
exactly, yeah.
This Poole Pride is actually quite different to a lot of other Pride events in that, in lots of different ways, there isn't a parade, for instance, and it's building based. How's it been accepted by the wider community? Have people sort of embraced the idea of a different kind of Pride?
Oh, completely. Everyone that we talked to has jumped on board. As soon as we started mentioning that we were going to do a Poole Pride, all the businesses, BCP, Poole Bid, even just the local shops and all the businesses that we've reached out to have been so supportive of everything that we've wanted to do. It can be difficult kind of pulling everyone together and having the time to do that, but everyone has either, from the sponsors that we've had, or even people just donating things in kind, or just actually advising us on different ways that we can do stuff. Everyone's been really supportive, which is so helpful, because these events, they take a lot of people and a lot of time to put together. And even just the community in general, when we've talked about it, when we've advertised it, everyone's excited. It's been nothing but positivity.
That's good. And excuse me. Although it's being held at Lighthouse, and Lighthouse is as a venue is the focus for the Pride activities. How important has it been to make this more than just another Lighthouse event?
Well, this is the thing. We didn't name it Lighthouse Pride. From the get-go, we wanted to make sure it was for the community. It's similar to when we did our community play. It wasn't a Lighthouse play. It wasn't something that we were parading around as this is solely Lighthouse. It's for the community, by the community. So we wanted to make sure that people understand that there are lots of different organisations, lots of people involved in this. This isn't just Lighthouse. And it is very different than anything that we've ever done.
Jay, as someone who's advised and worked with Lighthouse on Poole Pride, how did you get involved in this venture?
It was a mysterious process, actually. I got told in a very out of the blue email from my student union at university that the people at Lighthouse wanted to talk to me about the Queer Cinema Society. Okay, I wonder what this is, and we got talking and met on Zoom, and it became clear quite quickly that they had a film festival idea and wanted us to get involved with sending some suggestions for films that we could show, and getting involved with bringing in, I guess, the wider community in terms of young people into this. So it happened very quickly. It happened very, very nicely. It was very good.
So you make films as well as study?
I do, yeah.
And are there many outlets for queer film makers?
There's more and more, actually.
Right.
I think even I've been making films now for 4 years, and as I've discovered more about my queer identity and discovered that I want to put more of that into filmmaking, I've seen more and more opportunities pop up for me to showcase these films, from little tiny community events in smaller boroughs of certain cities that grow to multi-city events happening all over the country. So it's beautiful. Yeah.
It's good to know. So the Queer Film Festival that's happening as part of Pride is a celebration of queer cinema. Or tell us more about what we're going to see.
I think it's certainly a celebration. I think we certainly the films we've looked at together are all big, not necessarily big, but they have a big spirit. They have big energy, and even the smaller independent films that we're looking at are films that have such intensely queer stories to them, and stuff that I think will be certainly empowering for the community to see, but also educational for allies to see.
So are they largely independently made films, and short films, or full-length features, or?
Yeah, we're looking at a mix. So the features that we've currently looked at are all independent features. We have also looked at getting some short films from local queer filmmakers. I've not actually seen any of the submissions yet, but I know.
Yeah.
We've had an open call for local filmmakers.
So yes, we have had an open call for short films from local filmmakers, anyone who identifies as part of the community. The idea was to create a short film around the stimulus of Pride, so what that means to certain people. And it will all be showcased as part of like an anthology on the night of queer film. Because we talked briefly before about what the film fest could be, and I think we wanted to have short films or films made by queer filmmakers of Dorset. And after you'd looked at it with the society, I think the consensus was there's not actually a lot out there from people from Dorset. So the idea was well, if it's not out there, why don't we ask for people to send stuff in? Why don't we generate a new generation of filmmakers or people that are interested that might want to have their hand in creating something?
I suppose it's that thing of giving a focal point and making it public, and it kind of attracts people that are beavering away in their bedrooms or something. Then they've got a reason or a platform to work from, I guess.
Yeah, I think we all start, especially young filmmakers nowadays, we all start with a little camcorder in our bedrooms, just recording from YouTube videos to little short horror films with a blanket over our heads.
Yeah.
And to bring, because we talked about wanting that spirit in it. We wanted people who didn't necessarily have a big 4K camera and loads of booms. We wanted people who just wanted to put queer stories on screen, and to give people a platform, not only to put a film out there, but to show us their experiences.
And how important is it that it's that queer filmmakers are telling queer film stories?
I think it's a difficult one. It's a strange one, because there's so many of us, and I think a lot of us want to be telling those stories, but I think also just some of the films we've looked at and some of the films we programme at the Queer Cinema Society at the Arts University Bournemouth aren't necessarily about being queer, but they are just stories of everyday life told from a slightly queer angle. Someone who just happens to be transgender, someone who just so happens to be a lesbian, who is getting up and having breakfast and going to work.
Just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else, yeah.
I would say it's not necessarily like always making it the focus, but it's the authenticity of it. There's certain parts of it, like you said, someone who is just so happens to be transgender, there's going to be certain things about their life that someone who doesn't identify that way won't have the same truths. They won't have the same lived experiences, and having their voice come through in film, I think it's so much more interesting and important to watch when you know it's coming from their truth, from their voice. And a lot of the time that can go a bit underrepresented and overlooked. And there's so many parts of the community as well that have a truth that they don't get to share it. I think a lot of the time when we have queer cinema, it can be focused on gay, lesbian, a lot more voices coming through for trans people now, but there's so many bigger parts of that community that don't get to have their voice heard.
It's a very broad church, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Sort of it encompasses many different lives, many different experiences, and many different viewpoints. And yet, as you say, it's been underrepresented since forever. But now you have these tiny little oases of places where people can show their work, talk about their lives in that context.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that obviously there are film societies and there's a network of cinemas and screening houses probably as well, but to have something like this in a venue such as Lighthouse, is that quite important?
I think so. For me, yeah. I maybe as a film student, it's a slightly biased perspective, but when I step back and look at how far I've come just as a person, I owe so much to films, and I've learned so much about the world and myself through cinematic media. So for people to have this space, not only to see these films, but to meet other people and just to be in a space dedicated to being queer, even if it's just for a weekend or for a week or for a day, it does so much. It's a very healing experience.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'd say that the thing about film as well, it's not exclusive to anyone. It's not for the elite. It's, it can appeal to anyone, and we have such a broad age range of customers in our building at Lighthouse that showing different films during that week of queer film, it's important to be able to speak to lots of different ages and lots of different people and different communities. I think there was the film The Garden that we looked at that we'll be screening, that might be a film that people of a certain age may have recognised years ago, but are now able to see it on the big screen and be part of a discussion afterwards, which maybe they may not have ever been able to do.
The Derek Jarman film.
Yeah. It might have been something that has been quite important to someone for a while and never been able to share and talk about that film and discuss, but now they're going to be able to do it in a room with other people who are like-minded, that are open, and be able to feel like they're part of that community. Because I think as well, a lot of the time with queer communities, a lot of time I think older people get overlooked as well. I mean, being gay doesn't necessarily keep you funneled into being young. Being gay has been around. Being gay has been around for a long time, and I think now that attitudes are changing, it's allowing older people or people of an older generation to be able to start having those discussions that they never had before. And what a great place to do it than cinema, where
I think Derek Jarman is really interesting because there's a big following for his films, irrespective of people's sexuality or how they identify. And he raised up really, really important issues about Britain as a society, attitudes, where he came from, and even his local connections here to Canford School. And so to see those films to see anything of his on the big screen is a real treat, frankly, for film fans, regardless of how they identify. It'd be interesting to see what happens as a result of this specifically queer film season, whether that's something that that Lighthouse might continue, or whether Lighthouse might look at doing other short seasons of themed films. So in terms of how that might become a legacy for Poole Pride, is that what Lighthouse is looking at, do you know?
For sure, yeah. It's not something that we want to be, a one-time thing, especially with the wider things that we're doing, with things in the gallery, things in the cinema, even things with the studio. I mean, we're doing Poole Pride during Pride Month. There's no reason why this can't continue. If it's about the celebration, there is so much going on before, after, during this Poole Pride that I think we all want to continue, and we will champion it going further. I know that we definitely want to look at doing the Queer Film Fest yearly. It's a week of cinema that we feel is really important, and we want to continue it going forward. So it's definitely something we would continue to work with AUB and the Queer Cinema Society because it's great to have those voices in there as well, and it keeps everything, like we said before, it keeps it authentic, it keeps like the truth of it, and it shows what people want to see, what people have seen in the past. You know, two heads are better than one.
For students and for young filmmakers or emerging filmmakers of any age, to have an opportunity to put your film on a screen in a cinema with rows of seats that people pay money to go in is quite a big deal. Otherwise, you're just showing stuff off your phone, aren't you? So
yeah, I think we're always told at school, it's such a privilege to be on the screen, and to have the opportunity to put it in front of other people who aren't your mum is a really nice one. And I think it is all about that community. And even if you are just sat in a dark room together, just all facing one screen, that is a communal experience.
Oh, absolutely. And that's one thing that one of the joys of cinema is that you can experience something together with an audience that you don't actually talk to or even particularly see, but it's part of what makes all film enjoyable.
And you can enjoy it, but also have different experiences with it. And that's one of the great things about having discussions afterwards and giving people the chance to talk about what they've seen. People feel different ways from it. And I think that's fascinating as it is as well, especially if you're someone who's creating the film and you had no idea that you could make someone feel that way, or it was never your intention to generate that feeling. That's something that's special as well, the feelings you can evoke from someone.
That thing about where you make something and then let it have its own life and do its own thing. You have to let go of it. That's filmmakers must. You spend a lot of time building something and then it's no longer yours.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Like letting loose your children.
Yeah.
Great. So then, Poole Pride isn't to be seen as a one-off. It's to be seen as perhaps a building block, a focal point to start something from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that. Again, it's not Lighthouse Pride; it's Poole Pride, and there's no reason why this can't build into something bigger across the whole of Poole, with more people being involved. I feel like Poole Pride is more of like, it's pride, it's a feeling, it's what we can do to make things better and, generate awareness and bring a community together.
So the challenge is out there if you want to get involved, and
we want to hear from you. Yeah, of course.
Great. Well, thank you both. Thank you. I think that's shed some light on the first Poole Pride. And if you want to find out more, check out the website, lighthousepoole.co.uk. Should be on your screen. And you can find us at Facebook, X, Insta, and of course YouTube. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to check out other episodes of PrideCast on the Lighthouse Poole YouTube channel.
Cool.
Thank you.